On the exact day of our 30th wedding anniversary, I discovered that my husband was having an affair with my own sister. I still remember that moment as vividly as if someone had carved it into my heart with a cold blade. The wall clock ticked slowly while the kitchen was filled with the scent of freshly baked pastries, the smell I had believed for 3 decades to be the scent of happiness. Outside, Seattle drizzled. Headlights streamed through the window, reflecting off the faded wedding photo. A small notification blinked on my sister Amelia's tablet. "See you again, my love. G." When I touched it, a video began to play automatically. Dim hotel lighting, a familiar laugh, and Gregory's face appeared. In that moment, my world shattered into dust. I didn't scream. I just stared at the screen as if watching a stranger wearing the face of the man I once loved. The tears didn't fall right away. They got stuck somewhere in my throat as if my body refused to believe what my eyes had just seen. On the very day I thought I was being celebrated, they were together, destroying a part of me. I am Olivia Carter, 58 years old, owner of a small bakery called Sunrise Bakery, tucked away in a quiet suburb north of Seattle. I've spent more than half my life surrounded by the scent of vanilla, the touch of flour, and the cheerful jingle of the doorbell every morning. Everyone in the neighborhood calls me the woman of dawn because I open my bakery at 5 a.m., rain or shine. I married Gregory Carter, a small business owner in the food supply industry. We met when I was 26. He walked into my bakery, smiled, and said, "You bake like you're baking the sun." That line once made me blush. 30 years later, I still remember it. But now, when I think back, all I taste is bitterness. Gregory used to be the perfect man, hardworking, polite, never raised his voice. We have 2 children, Ethan, 28, a calm, thoughtful mechanical engineer, and Lily, 25, a graphic designer, dreamy, emotional, sometimes a bit stubborn. Both have moved out, but they still come home for dinner every weekend. To them, we were the perfect couple, building the bakery together, raising children together, growing old together. I used to believe that too, until Amelia, my older sister, moved nearby to help me with the shop. Amelia is 4 years older than me and went through a bitter divorce. I felt sorry for her, always welcomed her into my home, gave her a room to stay when it rained or when she said she just wanted to talk to her little sister. We were everything to each other after our mother died young. She was the one who put ointment on my scraped knees, the one who taught me how to bake my first cake. I never imagined that one day she would be the one to break me. Every morning, I'd see Gregory and Amelia laughing together in the kitchen, sometimes exchanging glances that I, the wife of 30 years, no longer received. I told myself, "You're imagining things." Gregory said she was helping him plan marketing for the bakery, and I believed him. Our house sits on a cherry-lined street with a garage connected to the back kitchen. In the evenings, as I washed the dishes, I could hear his car pulling in, a sound so familiar I never thought I would grow afraid of it. This spring, my daughter Lily was preparing for her first design exhibition. Amelia eagerly offered to help, while Gregory claimed to be busy but started coming home late. He said he had to meet a new client, a client no one at his company had ever heard of. One afternoon, a man named Lucas Gray came into the bakery. He introduced himself as a private investigator and a friend of Henry, my neighbor. We only exchanged a few words, but the way he looked at me sent a chill down my spine, as if he already knew I was hiding something. Then there's Emma Carter, Gregory's sister, a sharp, intelligent city lawyer. I've always loved her like my own sister. Emma was the first to notice the change in her brother. She pulled me aside one evening at the bakery and whispered, "Olivia, something's off with Gregory. I don't know what it is, but his eyes aren't the same anymore." I brushed it off with a nervous smile, trying to hide the unease growing in my chest. Henry and Margaret, the elderly couple next door, are the kind of kind-hearted neighbors who love tending flowers and observing life around them as a gentle habit. Every Christmas, Henry would film the snowfall in front of my house. Little did I know, months later, that very camera would become a crucial witness to betrayal. That night, our 30th wedding anniversary. I prepared dinner, a cake, white lilies, his favorite flowers. Amelia said she would come early to help me decorate. Gregory said he had an urgent meeting and would be home a little late. At 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Henry. Olivia, I think you should see this. I opened the video file he sent, and my world shattered. Dim lighting, a hotel parking lot, Gregory opening the car door for Amelia, his hand resting on her waist. There was no sound, only images. But sometimes, silence is the loudest scream. I sat down in the kitchen, surrounded by pastries and lilies, listening to the ticking clock counting down to the moment my life collapsed. Everything around me, the walls, the table, the dishes, the wedding photo, seemed to watch me in silence, as if witnessing a slow, deliberate murder, and the victim was trust itself. They say marriage is a home, but when that home is set on fire by the person you love most, all that's left is ashes and one haunting question: why? Since that night, everything in my house went on as usual, or at least it looked that way. Gregory still left every morning with his tie neatly in place, kissing my forehead lightly before walking out the door. I still baked bread, brewed coffee, and smiled as if nothing had changed. But inside me, a shadow had begun to spread, like oil seeping across the surface of water. He said the company was having trouble, that he needed to stay late at the office for a few nights. I nodded, asked no questions. I knew that smart women never question a man who is lying. They simply take note, every word, every detail, every glance. Amelia still came to the bakery every morning, bringing her soft smile and the scent of expensive perfume. She told me, "You should take better care of yourself, Olivia. Men fall in love with their eyes." I forced a smile. To anyone else, that might have sounded like advice, but to me, it was a blade, twisting slowly into a wound that hadn't yet healed. She always wore flawless makeup, bright red lipstick, tight dresses, the kind I hadn't worn since I got married. Every time Gregory called, she would step away from the counter, go outside to take the call, or excuse herself to make a delivery, but never said where. Once I saw her borrow his car. When I asked about it, she smiled. "My car's in the shop. Gregory said I could take his." I nodded. But that night when I went out to the garage, I felt the hood. Still warm. The odometer had jumped more than 50 miles. I began to suspect, yet I kept denying it. It can't be, I told myself. That's my husband, my own sister. When the truth is too cruel, people choose to believe the softer lie, even when they know it's false. Gregory came home later, often showered right after walking in. One night, I caught the scent of perfume on his shirt. Not mine, not Amelia's. Or maybe both. I stood in the dark, clutching his shirt in my hands, holding back tears. In a house full of memories, I felt like a stranger. Then one day, Amelia forgot her tablet at the bakery. She rushed out, saying she'd come back for it later. I didn't plan to touch it, but when a message notification chimed, the screen lit up. "I miss you. Last night was amazing." I froze, my hands trembled as I tapped the screen. A messenger window opened. The sender's name, Gregory C. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would tear through my chest. A video played, dim light, Amelia's laughter, and then his voice. Gregory. He brushed her hair back, kissed her neck, whispered, "You're the piece I've been missing in my life." I stood there numb, as if my soul had left my body. All sounds faded, leaving only my heartbeat. Slow, heavy, metallic. I didn't cry, I just sat there, staring at the two people I loved most in the world, intertwined, betraying me in the most merciless way. After a few minutes, I closed the app, deleted the browsing history, wiped my fingerprints from the screen, and placed the tablet exactly where she left it, as if nothing had happened. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside Gregory, listening to his steady breathing, his hand resting lightly on my pillow. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about 30 years of my life. How many times I had swallowed my pain for the sake of peace. How many times I had stayed silent, believing love could fix everything. Now I understood. Love saves no one. It only gives the betrayer another chance to kill your faith. In the days that followed, I lived like a machine. I baked, cleaned, smiled at customers, but inside, I was watching. I recorded every one of Gregory's calls, The time, the duration, the excuse. I noted every day Amelia went to make deliveries, matching them to the nights Gregory worked late at the office. I began piecing everything together, and the picture grew clearer by the day. Once I pretended to forget his lunch and stopped by his office unexpectedly. The secretary looked uneasy. "Mr. Carter is out on business today," but his coat was still hanging in his office. And on his desk, a hastily folded hotel receipt. I took it home and placed it in a wooden box, the one that once held his love letters. That box, once a chest of sweet memories, had become an archive of betrayal. Every night, I sat in the kitchen, writing down every detail: dates, times, locations. I didn't yet know what I would do, only that I could no longer live blind. Every time I saw Amelia smile and call me my sweet little sister, something inside me twisted, a mix of bitterness and pity. I didn't want to lose her, but I couldn't let them keep trampling my trust. One morning I met Lucas Gray again, the private investigator who had once visited the bakery. He said he was just there to buy pastries, but when he looked at me, he quietly asked, "Mrs. Carter, is something keeping you up at night?" I froze. I don't know why, but that question broke me. I began to cry. Lucas said nothing more. He just placed his business card on the counter. "When you're ready to face the truth, call me." I stared at that card for a long time. His name printed bold: Lucas Gray, private investigator. Back then, I didn't yet know that this man would become the one to lead me down the road to justice, a road paved with blood, tears, and rebirth. That night, when Gregory entered the bedroom, I turned to face the wall. He touched my shoulder gently, his voice soft. "Olivia, you've been acting strange lately. Is something wrong?" I smiled faintly, my tone calm, almost too calm. "No, I just need to start seeing things more clearly." He said nothing. He didn't know. From that moment on, I was no longer the obedient wife. I had become the watcher, the recorder, and soon, the judge. They say women in love are like candles, burning bright for someone else. But when they are betrayed, they become fire, and fire needs no one to ignite it. That evening, I had prepared everything with care. A 3-tiered cake, vanilla and caramel layers spread evenly, the words "Happy 30th Anniversary," written by hand, each stroke as deliberate as if I were tracing my own life. Lily chose white lilies, the flowers I'd planted in the first year of our marriage. Ethan played his father's favorite song. The whole house glowed, warm, bright, fragrant, as if nothing in the world could ever hurt it. Gregory walked in, white shirt, navy tie, the color I had chosen for him year after year. He hugged me loosely, kissed my cheek like a routine. "You've worked hard," he said. I smiled softly and whispered, 30 years. It was worth the effort. Amelia arrived soon after. Red dress, red lips, her perfume heavy and rich. She brought a bottle of French wine, saying, "This one's special. You should only open it on the happiest day of your life." Her words caught in my throat. Maybe a woman's intuition always senses the storm before it hits. She just lacks the courage to believe it. Guests poured in, friends, colleagues, neighbors. Everyone laughed, toasted, celebrated. I stood in the middle of my home, surrounded by warmth and light, and yet I felt a chill growing inside me. Gregory held Amelia's hand as they went around greeting people. I saw it. I saw everything. The way they looked at each other wasn't how family looked. It was the gaze of two people who had tasted something forbidden and secretly craved more. When everyone had gathered, Gregory stood up, holding a glass of wine. The golden light shone across his face, highlighting the wrinkles I once loved, marks of the time we had shared. He smiled and looked around. 30 years, a long journey, full of tears and joy. I want to thank the person who has always stood by me, helping me through everything. I stood beside him, hand trembling, ready to smile when he turned toward me. But then he turned to Amelia. That tender look, that gentle smile, the clinking of glasses, the scattered applause. The room spun around me. I don't remember what I did, only that I kept standing there, my smile frozen, like the frosting on the cake, I had just finished decorating. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just went silent. Because some pain doesn't need sound. All it needs is one look, and everyone will know the heart has died. That night, after everyone left, I cleaned up the table. Amelia said, "You must be tired. Let me help." I nodded, not meeting her eyes. Gregory had gone to bed. Or at least that's what he said. I walked to the garage. The garage, once the place where we painted the walls together, hung family photos, now smelled of gasoline and cold steel. I took off my wedding ring, the one I'd worn since June 5th, 1995, and looked at it one last time. The dim light reflected off its surface, so bright it made me squint. Then I threw it into the trash bin. A small sound, but it echoed like thunder inside me. My whole life, I built a home. They destroyed it with one touch. I sat on the cold floor, back against the wall, my head resting on my knees. From the kitchen, I could still hear the ticking clock, counting down the final seconds of a marriage. I looked up at the ceiling, the faint light from the refrigerator spilling through the door crack, illuminating a face I barely recognized as my own. When the clock struck midnight, I went back into the kitchen. Everything was silent. I opened the refrigerator, grabbed a bottle of water, its pale light casting a ghostly glow. On the table sat a slice of leftover cake and 2 wine glasses. Mine still full, Amelia's empty. I set the bottle down and whispered, "Thank you, sister, for teaching me what loss truly means." The words slipped out like a breath, soft, almost dissolving into the air. I sat on the kitchen floor, leaning my head against the fridge. Memories flooded in like a breaking dam. The night he proposed to me in the rain. The day I gave birth, his hand trembling as he cried. The mornings he brewed coffee and kissed my forehead before leaving. All of it now just props in a play called Marriage. Around 3 a.m., Amelia texted me, "Don't be sad. Gregory's just lost his way. He still loves you." I stared at the message and, for the first time in weeks, I laughed. A hollow, rasping laugh. Neither tears nor sound. The laugh of someone who has finally woken from a dream and is staring straight into the abyss. I deleted the message. Then I opened my phone and saved Lucas Gray's number. His name stood alone in my contacts, like a faint light in the darkness. "It's time," I whispered. "If justice doesn't come on its own, I'll drag it into the light." The next morning, I opened the bakery as usual. Neighbors greeted me, and I smiled back. No one knew that last night I had buried the woman I used to be, along with my wedding ring in the trash. I baked the first batch of bread, the scent of vanilla filling the room. Customers said, "It's so sweet," and all I could think was, sweetness is sometimes the perfect disguise for pain. That evening when Gregory came home, I no longer asked where he'd been or with whom. I simply poured the wine, smiled, and looked at him like I would a stranger. And inside I knew the betrayer no longer had the power to kill me twice. I had reached the depths of humiliation. And from that depth, there was only one direction left to go upward. When a woman goes silent, it isn't because she's weak, it's because she's listening to the collapse of the old world and preparing to build a new one stronger than before. I no longer cried after the night I threw my wedding ring into the trash. There are wounds so deep that tears no longer soothe them. Only silence remains, thick, cold, like ash after a great fire. I woke earlier than usual. Not to bake, but to begin a plan. A plan that if someone had told me about a year ago, I would have laughed and said, no, I could never do that. But the woman I am now is no longer the gentle wife. I've learned to look straight into the fire and use that very fire to light my way. I found Lucas Gray's business card again. A private investigator, tall, calm, with eyes that seemed to have seen too many of life's ugly truths. I called him. His voice was low and rough, not the least bit surprised. "Mrs. Carter, I knew you'd call." We met at a small cafe near the harbor. I arrived early, sitting in a corner by the window, looking out over the dull gray water. When Lucas arrived, he didn't make small talk. He simply opened his leather notebook and asked, "How much do you want to know?" My voice came out hoarse from sleepless nights. "Everything. I don't want guesses. I want proof." Lucas nodded, writing something down. "Then prepare yourself. The truth always has a price, and it's not just money." He began teaching me things I never thought I'd need to know: how to hide cameras in flower vases and clocks, how to plant a tracker without being noticed, how to speak to a liar calmly while memorizing every word, every look. Lucas sent me the first videos. Gregory and Amelia leaving a hotel. He opened the car door for her, his hand on her back, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I watched it all. No pausing, no flinching. Each time my heart clenched, I told myself, the more it hurts, the clearer you see. I hadn't expected Henry, my kind old neighbor, to be the first to help me. One morning, I brought him an apple pie to thank him and to ask for something. "Henry, do you still have that camera you used to film the finches in your yard?" He looked at me quietly, then nodded. "I know, Olivia. I've seen a few things, but I didn't dare tell you. What do you need me to do?" The next day, he installed a small camera on his porch, aimed at my backyard. A week later, he handed me the first clip, headlights flickering on, Gregory unlocking the back gate, Amelia stepping out of the shadows, wearing his jacket. They embraced, right there, in the garden where I watered my roses every morning. I turned off the screen. No tears, just cold. I started moving our bank accounts, slowly, quietly, leaving no trace. Everything had to be done carefully, like pulling a needle from a wound without letting the blood spill. I told Lily I was reorganizing the bakery's finances. She smiled, unaware that I was detaching myself from a marriage that was already decomposing. Gregory still came home late, still carried that unfamiliar perfume on his clothes. When I looked at him, I saw a stranger inside a familiar shell. And that's when I realized I no longer loved him. I only wanted to end him, with truth. When Lucas handed me the hard drive containing all the evidence, he placed it on the table like a verdict. "Enough to ruin him completely," he said. I stayed silent. No relief, no joy, only emptiness. I called Emma Carter, Gregory's sister, a lawyer, and the only one in his family I still trusted. When I told her everything, she didn't speak. Only when I placed the USB in front of her did she look up, her voice cold and steady. "Olivia, this isn't just infidelity. This is character assassination. If you want to win, we'll make it clean, and we'll make it hurt." We began building the case. I demanded custody of our children, 70% of the assets, and full ownership of the bakery. Not out of greed, but because I knew. I built all of it with my own hands. He only helped destroy it. A week later, I arranged to meet Gregory and Amelia at the cafe where he and I had once celebrated our 10th anniversary. Not by chance, I wanted them to face the truth in the very place that had once witnessed their vows. Amelia arrived first, eyes swollen, trying to appear composed. Gregory came after, tie crooked, face tired. I was already there, a single cup of black coffee and a small USB lying on the table between us. He looked at it, then at me. "Olivia, what is this?" I met his eyes, my voice calm, too calm. "You didn't just betray me, you betrayed my blood." Silence. The air grew so heavy we could hear each other breathing. Amelia trembled, tears spilling. "Liv, I didn't mean to. He was lonely. Stop." I cut her off, my voice sharp as a blade. "You're not weak, Amelia. You're selfish. And the worst part is, you did it while still calling me your sister." Gregory's hands shook. His head bowed. "I was wrong, but I still love you." I laughed, a dry, hollow laugh. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the man in the mirror." I stood, picked up my purse, and left the bill on the table. "That drive holds the truth. I've already sent copies to my lawyer. You'll be getting papers soon." I walked away without looking back, not because I was strong, but because if I looked for even a second, I might falter. But justice leaves no room for weakness. That night, I went through our files and papers. Every photo, every letter, I placed in a box. Not burned, not torn. I wanted to keep them so that if anyone ever asked, "How does a woman turn to steel?" I could point and say, "Here." It started with the things that once made her believe in love. On the day I signed the divorce papers, Seattle was misting. Emma sat across from me and nodded. "It's done. You're free now." I looked out the window, watching raindrops trail down the glass like the sky was washing away what was left. Not free, Emma, I said softly. Just myself again. In the weeks that followed, I poured all my time into the bakery. I changed the sign. Sunrise Bakery was gone. In its place, a new name, Sweet Justice. Henry helped paint the sign, chuckling. That name sounds like a warning. I smiled. No, it's a reminder. Justice can be sweet, if you're patient enough to let it bake slowly. I still saw Lucas from time to time. He'd drop off documents or just sit quietly with his coffee. One day I asked him, "How many betrayals like this have you seen?" He thought for a moment. Many, but very few who go all the way through like you did. I smiled, eyes on the rainy street. I didn't go all the way for revenge, Lucas. I did it. So I'd never have to bow my head again. The night before the trial, I sat in my familiar kitchen. The light from the refrigerator fell across my face. This time, not cold. On the table sat the divorce file, a pen, and a small note. I had written to myself, "When they take away your love, don't beg for it back. Rebuild yourself and let them face their own ashes." I signed my name. The ink was steady, like a vow. Tomorrow, I would stand in court. Gregory would face what he had done. Amelia might hide, might cry, might make excuses, but justice, even when late, always arrives. I smiled faintly and closed the folder. Outside, Seattle was still raining, but for me, the dawn had begun. People think women seek revenge to hurt others. They're wrong. We seek it to remind ourselves that we still have a choice. And I've made mine. Never again will I let anyone betray me twice. That morning, the city was covered in a thin mist, and pale sunlight filtered through the cold glass towers. I stepped out of the car in front of the county courthouse, my gray coat draped over my shoulders, my hair pinned up, my face with minimal makeup, and somehow my eyes made people turn to look. Not because of my appearance, but because of the calm of someone who had gone through hell and come back. Emma was waiting for me at the entrance, holding a thick file. She squeezed my shoulder gently. "Are you ready?" I nodded slightly. I have been ready ever since the night they called each other by name in that hotel room. The courtroom was bright, and shoes tapped evenly on the wooden floor. On the other side, Gregory sat with his attorney, his face tight with tension. Amelia avoided my gaze, her hands trembling as she clutched a handkerchief. I did not look at them anymore. There was no need to look. When the judge asked for the presentation, Emma stood up, her voice clear and firm. "Your Honor, my client, Mrs. Olivia Carter, has been gravely betrayed in a 30-year marriage. We have full evidence of Mr. Gregory Carter's affair with the plaintiff's own sister." Murmurs rose across the room. Gregory bowed his head and pressed his lips together. Amelia began to cry, her sobs small and bitter. Emma placed the USB on the table. Lucas, the private investigator, stepped forward to submit the evidence file, including hotel images, restaurant receipts, the audio recording from the garage, and the backyard camera footage provided by our neighbor, Henry. Everything was painfully clear. "Your Honor," Emma continued, "this is not only infidelity in a marriage, but also a severe emotional violation, since the affair was with a close family member. My client requests custody of the children, full ownership of the bakery, and compensation for damage to her reputation." The judge nodded and signaled for Gregory's side to respond. The opposing counsel attempted to frame this as a momentary lapse in judgment and asked for leniency. Gregory looked at me with wet eyes. "Olivia, I have no words other than sorry. I know I was wrong." I stayed seated, my hands folded in my lap. I did not look at him, and I said softly, "Sorry is a word for those who cherish what they once had. You sold everything cheap for a few hours of illusion." The courtroom fell silent. Even the judge looked up and nodded slightly. When Henry was called to testify, he slowly pulled another USB from his pocket. "I did not intend to meddle in anyone's affairs," he said. "But when I saw Olivia standing alone in the yard at night, I knew she deserved to hear the truth." The video played on the screen, dim lighting showing Gregory and Amelia embracing under the backyard light. No words, no sound, only images. And sometimes images are the heaviest sentence. The judge struck his gavel after nearly 2 hours of hearing. His voice rang out clearly, each word cutting the air. After reviewing all the evidence, the court orders the following. The divorce petition is granted. Full ownership and operation of Sunrise Bakery are awarded to Mrs. Olivia Carter. Mr. Gregory Carter is ordered to vacate the marital residence within 48 hours. Mrs. Olivia Carter is granted full custody of the children and control of the remaining marital assets. The courtroom was utterly still. I could only hear my own heart beating, slow and steady, like the end of a long war. Gregory kept his head down and his shoulders shook slightly. Amelia covered her face and wept, tears soaking the white handkerchief. I stood up and said quietly, "Thank you, Your Honor." No tears fell. Tears are only for things still worth regretting. That afternoon, Gregory packed his things in silence. He stood by the garage where I had once thrown my wedding ring and looked at me, his lips moving. "I am sorry, truly sorry," I answered calmly, my voice so composed that even I did not recognize it. "Gregory, you can keep your apology. I do not need it. I need justice, and I have it." He closed the car door and left without turning back. No one saw him off. Amelia left the state a week later. I heard she moved to a small town in the South and opened a flower shop where no one knew her past. I do not hate her, but I no longer love her. Some relationships, once broken, end best in silence. One morning I reopened the bakery. A new sign hung above the door, Sweet Justice. I chose that name not to boast, but to remind myself that justice sometimes needs to be baked slowly so its flavor can deepen and become sweet. Early sunlight streamed through the large window, reflecting off the polished counter. I wiped the counter and cleaned the baking trays as the smell of flour and butter mingled into a warm, comforting aroma. It was no longer the scent of the past, but the scent of a new beginning. The bell above the door jingled. Lily walked in carrying a bouquet of sunflowers. Ethan followed with a small gift box in his hand. "Mom," Lily said softly, "you look happy today." I smiled. "Yes, because I realized something. No one can take my peace unless I let them." Ethan set the gift on the counter. Inside was a wooden plaque engraved with the words, "Sweet Justice, owned by Olivia Carter." I ran my fingers over each letter and felt warmth spread through me. Outside, the sun began to shine brightly. I watched people pass by and saw life go on. For the first time in many years, I did not feel abandoned. At noon, the first customers arrived. Henry and his wife Margaret were among them. He placed his hand on the counter and smiled. "Justice is sweet, Olivia," I answered with a soft breath. "Yes, but it is also sharp enough so we never forget the bitterness of the past." They left, and I looked around the small shop, now glowing with golden light, quiet but full of life. I knew this place was more than a bakery. It was a symbol of rebirth and of a woman who rose from the ruins and found herself again. I stepped out onto the porch and lifted my face to the breeze. The scent of flour, the aroma of coffee, and the salt of old tears blended together. I smiled, a small, real smile, and a peaceful one. "They took my love," I whispered, "but I took myself back." Do not fear losing someone. The worst thing is losing yourself. When women stand up, they do not need to seek revenge. Their victory is to live better than anyone who ever hurt them.